Hey everyone. So in my last YouTube video, I spoke about the Lee Dynamic XL case, which is here. But as you can see, there is no glass panel on the case right now. And as I explained in my last video, it's because the glass panel actually exploded. So I was doing a few upgrades on the PC and I put the glass panel down here. And when I was trying to grab a cable, an HDMI switch accidentally stuck to the cable bag. It caught the corner of the glass panel and the glass panel exploded. Now, it didn't take a lot of pressure to actually make it explode. I assumed it would have just been a mark or something, but it was 100% my fault. And I contacted Lee and they are sending a glass panel all the way from Asia to the UK. So soon that will be repaired. But I mentioned in that video that I was doing a few PC upgrades, and that's what I want to talk about in this video today. I did a few upgrades, a few minor upgrades to this PC, and I did a few upgrades to my older PC, which has got the Meshify C case, and inside is an 8700K CPU. So the first upgrade that I performed was on my main PC here. I picked up two Seagate Firecuda 520 solid state drives, one for this PC and one for my other PC. And I picked up the 2TB versions of this NVMe drive. Now, as you would expect, the installation process was a breeze. I just had to remove my older drive, which was a 2TB Samsung Evo Plus, and then connect the new Firecuda 520 directly to the motherboard and then put the heatsink back on. Very, very simple. But as far as why you would pick up this drive in particular, well, there's a few reasons. The 520 replaces the 510, which is a Gen 3 drive, and the 520 is a Gen 4 drive. But all of these Firecuda drives are, they get good reviews. Seagate market them towards gamers, as you can see here. But one of the things that always attracted me to them was the warranty. I think the warranty is quite good here. They've all got a warranty of 5 years. As far as speeds go, the 520 has got sequential read up to 5,000 megabytes per second and writing up to 4,400 megabytes per second. And certainly when compared to, Samsung's range and the Sabrent drive that I've got as well, for a Gen 4 drive, those read and write speeds aren't the best, certainly from a speed point of view. But one of the reasons to pick up one of these Firecuda drives is because of its lifespan. The maximum terabytes written TWH is quite high for these drives, and quite simply, these drives can handle a lot more writing to the disk, and that's really good. And that's why these drives are quite popular with people who are experimenting with Chia mining, which is something I've tried to test, but I'm not sure if I'll stick with it. But it's also popular with gamers, but also for video editors, and that's long-term why I wanted to pick up one of these drives, because when I'm doing a video, when I'm editing a video in DaVinci Resolve, all of these videos, all these clips that I record, including this one, they will all be cached into a separate SSD, the Firecuda. And then once I put all the video together and I've encoded the video, those cache files can be deleted. And then I'll write new video files to the cache drive later. But that means that I can be writing 40, 50 gigabytes of data directly to the drive every time I create a video. And that's why you want an SSD that's got a really high lifespan. So the next upgrade that I performed was also on this PC, and it was also storage, but it was not a solid state drive. It was a 3.5-inch mechanical drive. And I actually picked up two of these drives. Again, one for this PC, one for the PC downstairs. And as you can see, I picked up the 18TB Western Digital Red Pro NAS hard drive. It says here it's £574 directly from the Western Digital store, but I managed to get them for about 500, so it was about $1,000 for both of these drives. 36 terabytes in total, 18 terabytes per drive. And installing hard drives like that into the Lee Dynamic XL is extremely straightforward. Again, all you have to do is unscrew the back cover, you take out the chassis, you connect your hard drive to it, slide it back in, and just make sure that the SATA data cable and the SATA power cable at the back are all connected up. Very, very straightforward. But as far as why I've picked up these drives, well, in the short term, like I said, I've been experimenting with Chia mining and storing some plot files there, but I'm also storing some YouTube video files there. But long term, I say long term, in the short term, really, within the next 4 or 5 months, I'm going to pick up a NAS system. I'm still unsure whether to go for 4, 5, 6, or 8 bays with a NAS system, but I want to set up a large network at home where I can store files, where I can deploy, home websites and testing for different things at home when I'm working. And I'm going to be doing that via a NAS system. And I thought I'd start picking up those NAS drives right now. So the next few upgrades were for my older PC build, the one with the 8700K CPU and the Fractal Design Meshify C case. Now, Fractal Design have released a revision of this and they have expanded this range. There's a lot of variations of the Meshify PC cases, but I've got the Meshify C case from about 4 or 5 years ago, and I haven't destroyed the glass panel yet, and I'm still using it because it's in great condition and it's still a fantastic case. But before I could install that second 18 terabyte Western Digital drive, I had to return the hard drive caddy. When you buy the Meshify C case, it comes with a caddy for 2 hard drives, 2.5 inch or 3.5 inch drives. But I had removed the caddy 4 or 5 years ago, and I put in a bottom intake fan instead for airflow from the bottom of the PC. So I had to remove that fan and then put the caddy back in. Now, I wasn't too bothered about removing that fan per se. I would have liked more airflow. It's always good to have more airflow in a case, but there's not a lot of airflow coming from the bottom of the case anyway. And there's a lot of airflow coming from the front, so it wasn't a huge problem for me to add the caddy back. Once I had added the caddy, I was able to secure the hard drive to the little chassis that you get for it and then just insert it back into the PC. Once I had added the Western Digital drive, I could flip the PC back round and install the second Seagate Firecuda 520 SSD that I picked up. Once again, a simple installation. I just had to connect it directly to the motherboard. The next upgrade that I had for my older PC was the power supply, and I managed to pick up the Superflower Leadex or Leadex Titanium 850 watt PSU. Now, Superflower are a power supply company from Taiwan, and they've been operating since 1991, so 30 years, but you might not have heard of them, even though you might have been using them. They've released power supplies for companies like EVGA or EVCA, as some people say, and been releasing through other companies for a long time, but they have been releasing their own products as well. Now, interestingly, this particular model looks identical to my EVGA T2, which is also a titanium power supply, but it's quite fascinating. It's got the exact same design as the power supply that I bought from EVGA several years ago. It looks identical, the cables are identical and all that as well. As far as why I picked up titanium, well, I've spoken about this many times in the past, but I have found that platinum and titanium power supplies do have better components. They sometimes have longer warranties. And yes, the power curve is better as far as efficiency goes, but just as far as reliability goes, I've just always found them to be good. And for me, it's worth it, especially because some of the PCs that I've got, I run them 24 hours a day for servers or for whatever. Now, I initially tried to pick this up from Overclockers. It was being sold for like £225. But after ordering this power supply, after a few days, it didn't arrive. And then I checked online, and despite the fact it was in stock when I ordered it, I saw that it was on pre-order. But I saw someone was selling it on eBay, and I managed to pick it up for £160 delivered. So quite good for a titanium power supply, 850 watts. £160 is quite good, in my opinion. And it didn't come with a UK adapter, but I had one of those already. So quite a good deal. And installing it, once again, very, very straightforward. I just had to slide it into the Meshify C case and then just start routing all the cables from the back to the front of the motherboard and just make sure that the motherboard cable and the CPU cable, etc. were all attached to the motherboard. So the final upgrade for my older PC was to install a new CPU cooler. Now, this year alone, I've bought about 3 or 4 different all-in-one coolers, such as this NZXT Kraken Z73 with the pump header and all that. And I do like all-in-one coolers, but there's a lot to be said about buying an air cooler. And I published a video talking about why I love air coolers so much. But if you look at CPU cooler reviews, it tends to be water blocks and it tends to be AIOs that, give the best performance. And certainly when you look at the best performing CPU coolers, it will be AIOs, etc. at the top. But I love air coolers. I love the fact they're cheaper. I love the fact that they have a longer lifespan and they're pretty much impossible to break. I mean, an air cooler just works and it will work in 10, 15 or 20 years time. But previously with my Meshify C build, I was using the Thermalright, and I say Thermalright because this is the screwdriver from that kit, the Thermalright Legrand Macho RT, which has been a fantastic air cooler for me the last couple of years. But the thing is massive, it's huge, and it's always been a pain to work with. When I used that cooler, whenever I used it, I had to remove it just to change the hard drive or get to a cable at the back. It was a fantastic cooler, the temperatures were great, but it was always a pain to work with. So I wanted to upgrade, but really from a cooling point of view, I was downgrading. And I was downgrading to the Noctua NH-U12S Redux. Yes, a bit of a mouthful, but this is a small air cooler. It really is, in comparison to the, the larger air coolers in the market, such as the one that I had. This is a small cooler, but it still performs well, and it can handle the 8700K CPU, which is in my PC. But in addition to this one, I also picked up this. This is the NA-FK1 Redux, but essentially what it is a second fan, a fan kit for this CPU cooler. And using that fan kit, I was able to add 2 fans to the cooler itself. Now, this did add a little bit of bulk, but it was still easy to install in my system. I had plenty of room for it. There's an argument for not adding that second fan because it only really drops temperatures another 3 or 4 degrees, but I had the room there anyway. It was very easy to install. Now, I only paid, it was only like £43 for the main cooler and then another £15 for this. And yes, I could have used, when you combine the cost of both of these, I could have went for a better cooler. But like I said, I was looking for something smaller. I was looking for something that was easier to work with. If you've ever installed a CPU cooler before, you'll have no problems installing the Noctua U12S. All I had to do was remove the old front plate and standoff screws, go to the back of the motherboard, take off the old back plate and secure the new back plate in place, which is provided in the box by Noctua. At the front of your motherboard, you can then attach the mounting bars and then simply drop your Noctua U12S into place and secure it to those bars. The last thing that you have to do is attach your fans, which was extremely straightforward. A lot easier than it was with my Legrand Macho RT cooler. And the overall process of installing it, it really is simple. Just make sure you follow everything that's in the guide. The manual shows you how to do everything step by step. So as you saw there, that final upgrade to my old PC was, from a cooling perspective at least, a downgrade. I went from a large air CPU cooler that can cool pretty much any consumer level CPU on the market to something smaller, but also something that offers lower thermal performance. But looking at the numbers, and I've not been tracking this religiously, but just looking at the temperatures and looking at the CPU graph, etc., it does look like the U12S handles the A700K quite well. And I actually applied a small overclock using Gigabyte software, and it's fine. Absolutely no problem with temperatures. And from a management point of view, this is a major upgrade, not a downgrade. There's so much more room for me to work with. Previously, I had to remove the CPU cooler to work with cables, sometimes to access RAM. And if I was doing anything with the graphics card or with the first NVMe drive, I normally had to take off a fan or I had to take off the whole cooler. Not anymore. Yes, with 2 fans, it is still relatively big, but there's a lot of clearance at all sides. So I'm really happy with the purchase. I would certainly buy that particular cooler again from Noctua. And it goes to show sometimes it's not worth going the extra mile to get a larger cooler for better performance if you're not going to be actually using it. Sometimes getting a small cooler that does the job is the way to go. But there was one other thing that I did do with that old PC, and it was to remove the upgrade that I did previously. So I'd upgraded the PC with another Western Digital drive, but I've taken that Western Digital drive and I put it into this PC. In fact, I've done more than that. I've bought another 2 Western Digital 18TB drives. So I've now got 4 18TB drives here, 2 here, and 2 underneath. Very easy to access. I can take them in and out very easily. And yeah, I've now got 4 18TB drives in this PC. Now, I don't need 4 18TB drives in this particular PC. It's really just where I'm holding the drives right now until I get a dedicated NAS. But it works quite well for now. And you can see in disk management, you can see the 4 drives right there. And if I show you Windows, just the file explorer, you can see that I've got a ridiculous amount of drives connected right now. In addition to those 4 3.5-inch mechanical drives, and I've got 3 NVMe drives attached directly to the motherboard. I've also got an NVMe drive attached via USB Type-C, and I've got one through my Razer Core X Chroma eGPU as well. So I've got 5 NVMe drives attached right now. It's a little bit ridiculous, but when I did the upgrade, when I put those mechanical drives in, I had to take this 4TB SanDisk solid state drive out. This is just a SATA SSD. I was going to connect it to the back. There's like a casing part at the back where you can attach 3 2.5-inch drives. I had a little bit of a problem with it. Maybe I just need to find a different SATA power cable, but the power cable wasn't connecting properly. So I had a think about it and I thought, I don't actually need this right now because this is a 4TB drive and I was using it for backups for game recordings, that I've made for YouTube videos that I've made over the last few months. And I was storing them all in here. But with all of those Western Digital NAS drives in there now, I can transfer all of these files. I can, just put this into an enclosure, transfer all the files to those mechanical drives. And later when those drives go into a NAS system, I can put this back into the PC and simply repurpose it and use it for something else. So I don't really need this right now for the time being, but I'm keeping it. Obviously, it's a fantastic drive. So I hope you've enjoyed this look, all the upgrades I've made to this PC and my older PC. And I'm going to be using my older PC for gaming, maybe for a server for something that I'm working on, and maybe for something else. But I do like that I've kept my old PC and it's something that I can still work on. But I hope you've enjoyed this look at the upgrades that I've made. And in the future, I will replace the glass in here as well. That's something I have to do in the future. I sent 50 odd bucks to Lee and Lee to get a replacement, but hopefully that will be there soon. But thanks for watching, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this video and I'll speak to you all in the next one. Take care.